Today we interview well-known community volunteer and philanthropist Nancy Strohmer. She is adamant about why we need to think pink and shares what her surgeon said was the number 2 defense against breast cancer. When we think about defenses and things that we need to do to avoid having breast cancer or to prevent it, we usually think about healthy eating or having our annual mammograms, which are all important, but her surgeon's recommendation may surprise you. When you subscribe to our show, you help us grow. Someone you know may need to hear this story, so please share with your family and friends. And consider supporting our mission. Your donation can help save the life of an uninsured woman. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. This year alone, you won the 2024, what was it, the top most inspiring woman award?
The Houston top impact makers in
award.
Yes.
Say that again for us.
I was one of the 20 Houston top impact makers.
And that's because of all the many things that you have done in this community,
Yes.
Recognizing your gifts, your volunteerism, all of the community support. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
And I know you have a little bit of a love for healthcare, because actually one of your first experiences in life was as a candy striper, right?
Yes. True. But going back to my teens, right, that was an interest for me.
Yeah.
Helping others and working in a hospital was just perfect. That fit me perfectly.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So
That was such a great entry for so many, especially women at the time,
Right.
to say, oh, I'm not going to do something else in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as you've been through so many different types of organizations, education, health, tell me a couple of 3 others that you've supported over these years.
So health-related, of course, is a big part of my contribution and activity in Houston. And it's my work it's been now over 40 years for the things that I've done in Houston. Also the arts, and then women advancement. Those are 2 areas that are very important to me as well. So in each of those 3 areas, I've either served on the board, been president, been very active. So not just a member, but actively leading and participating in those organizations.
What has always motivated you? Did you come from a particularly giving family, or?
I did. My parents were very philanthropic. They gave of their time. They gave of their money. When I became a candy striper, that was the only thing I could do at the time to really give back. So I've always led my life, and the purpose I have in life is to give back where I can. I had a business for 20 years, a manufacturing company here in Houston. I sold it. So even during that time, one of my priorities outside of family was participating in some organization and being able to make a difference. I'm more of a leader than a follower, but I'm a good follower as well, good worker. But that's always been something I've had a huge need to do. I continue to. When I sold my business in 2001, that gave me even more time. So we traveled a lot, and anytime I was home, it was family and probably chairing some gala or
Family, community, yeah. I mean,
family, community, and faith as well.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. And recently now, you've been introduced to another world, and one I suppose you never expected to be a part of.
True.
Tell us about your diagnosis.
So my breast cancer journey has been really recent. 8 months ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that's how recent.
Oh, my.
So that was during my annual mammogram. So I go for my annual mammogram, and the ultrasound machine was broken, and they said I need an ultrasound. So they called me back the next day. Very typical for me because I have fibrous breasts. So this is nothing unusual, nothing alarming whatsoever. So I go the next day and get my ultrasound. The radiologist comes in and just very straightforward says, "Where would you like your breast cancer treatment?" And first
Whoa.
I'm thinking, how do you know that from an ultrasound? But it was very evident.
Right.
So I wasn't shocked, but I knew where I wanted to go immediately because 8 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 41. So I
my
was 74
goodness.
this past, in September. So I had done all the research then and knew that I wanted my daughter to be at Baylor because the Dr. Kent Osborne, I adore. He's a friend, and I just admire what he's done in breast cancer research so much. And then the surgeon was going to be Dr. Boniface. So I did my homework then. So my daughter, of course, 8 years later, is living a healthy life and cancer-free at this point, so, which is wonderful news. So immediately I scheduled my biopsy at Baylor. And I'm still thinking they're wrong. How can this be? They don't know. So I have my biopsy done. And yes, they confirmed I had breast cancer. Stage 2, HER2 breast cancer. So, in which Dr. Osborne happens to be one of the world-renowned HER2
Absolutely.
researchers,
Yes.
which by luck. So, called my husband, then I called my daughter from when I was leaving, after my biopsy, and I said, I have breast cancer. So, what was ironic that evening, we were to go to my daughter and son-in-law's to babysit their 8 and 12-year-old sons. So that evening, we're driving there. We, knock on the door, and my grandsons immediately ran up to me and gave me this card.
Oh.
And it was get well. Well, I'm looking with the hearts, and I'm looking at this thinking, I don't have breast cancer, and I feel so guilty taking this. So I really still was in denial, even after the biopsy. So I went in, we played some games, and about 15 minutes later, my 8-year-old grandson says, "Nana, you don't act like you have breast cancer." I was like, I could, I had to laugh out loud. So I said, "Well, I feel fine, Bryce, but I need to get the breast cancer taken out, and I'm sure I'll be fine after that." So reality did set in because another funny thing that happened, that my lumpectomy was scheduled on Halloween. So I thought, that's just perfect. And my line, of course, for the week was, I'm going to get this little witch off my chest this week on Halloween. How appropriate. So I had the lumpectomy on Halloween. Within 2 weeks, I started radiation, 10 days of radiation, and I was finished. And from beginning September to November, 8 weeks later, I had completed the whole process, which is remarkable and
is.
amazing. I was on
Yes.
the fast track, which couldn't have been a better gift, because anytime you have to wait for a procedure or wait for a diagnosis, all that is so stressful. So it was minimal for me, and I was very fortunate that it was.
And look at you. I mean, yeah.
I feel great, yes.
Feel great.
And I had my 6-month visit yesterday with the oncologist and the surgeon. And actually, I told them I was coming here today, and all's well. All's perfect. So,
See, that is such an incredible story, and one that needs to be shared over and over again because, and you know, there was a time when you said the word cancer and it was a death sentence. I mean, it meant you were going to die of cancer.
Right.
And here you were, 8 weeks. I mean, this is incredible. And again, found on your annual mammogram.
Right.
Now, you didn't feel this.
Zero. In fact, my oncologist, Dr. Osborne, when he was examining me, he didn't feel anything. So he said, it has to be small. I mean, he put me at ease at the beginning, and he said, I'll be very surprised if it's, not stage 1. It was stage 2, but you could not feel it. So it had to be caught by a mammogram.
Right.
So that tells you how critical that is. It would have taken
years before you could have felt it.
Right.
Yeah. And then it would have had time to do a whole bunch more damage and spreading and all those things we don't want to have happen.
Right.
But that's such an important story for women to hear and for our listeners to hear. It doesn't matter what age you might have and how. And, right now there's a very big push on that women our age shouldn't have mammograms anymore. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yes.
It's the latest recommendation
Yes.
out of the United States Preventive Services Task Force, which has, and I'm going to say this out loud, done more to confuse women than anything else that we've ever had. They either hear you don't need a mammogram or you don't need it but every other year or you can stop it in your 70s. And, women in their 70s are vital. They're moving, they're going, they're not, life isn't over.
Right.
And so it's like, why even put that out there? It is so difficult for most of us to understand because we want to feel like we're following what the experts tell us. But you and I both know in the real life world, it's going to happen. So get that annual mammogram. That is so important.
And to add to that annual mammogram, so as I mentioned, my daughter had breast cancer 8 years ago. So she had just turned 41 during that time. So we're coming up on 9 years in October. So they said, no, you don't need a mammogram to her. Well, one of her high school best friends had died in her 30s of breast cancer. So my daughter was very proactive in getting tested for anything and everything, but particularly breast cancer. So she insisted on having a mammogram. That was October. Her birthday's September. September. So she had just turned 41. She had her first mammogram, and guess what? There it was. Cancer, breast cancer. Yes.
Another huge message for folks to hear.
Yes.
It is your body.
Right.
You are important. Don't take no.
Right. You are responsible for your body. And your
and we'd love to see that age lower. But we'll take 40. It's better than a few years ago when it was 50.
Right.
Can you imagine how many women we would have lost in that time if we had adhered to it? The Roses never adhered to that. But it's once again, you have to be your own advocate.
You do.
And I just am always amazed at the number of women, even within our organization, that we find on that first mammogram.
Yes.
And
it's amazing. It's
breast
scary.
cancer, is so insidious. You don't have to have a symptom going on. You can be healthy. Like your grandson said, you don't look like you have breast cancer. Well, what's that supposed to look like? I mean, breast cancer just happens. And then when we want it to happen is when we can catch it early and you have options. Obviously, your treatment options were huge just because of the earliness.
Yes. And I was very fortunate on the timing.
And, Dr. Osborne and Dr. Benfast have both been in our history.
Oh.
They were the ones that, honest to gosh, took care of our uninsured when nobody else would.
Oh, really? Oh.
I couldn't say enough good things about them.
Is one of the best parts that I've learned about the Rose is caring for the access to care for those who don't have it, pay for it and can't have that treatment and don't have the resources or the knowledge to go and get those, take advantage of those resources. Right. And that's why the Rose is so critical, and that's part of its mission. And to me, that's probably the most important part.
Oh, it is. I say this often, our mobile units, they are the coaches, those big old bus-looking things. They probably do our mission better than any other service we offer. They're the most costly, the most difficult to maintain. Equipment is always first class, but it's just when that coach drives up to a church or a business or a school, and that woman can take 15 minutes and be done with it, she's going to do it.
Right.
And if we were not there, how many women would we have missed? Just because. I mean, it's women are busy. You were busy, but you still made that time.
Right.
But
some won't, and those vehicles do make it easy to say, yes, I'll go ahead and get my mammogram.
So I know when I first met you, you said, I am just passionate about this now. I want to talk about it. So what other messages would you have for women who are at any age? I mean, your daughter's story is huge.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Well, at any age. And now this is one of my new passions will be to help with awareness of breast cancer in every way. I know when I first found out, within, maybe a couple weeks, I finally got over the shock. And the first thing that I bought, this was after my biopsy, I guess, I had my treatment. No, it was after my treatment. So I purchased a license plate holder, and it says, Think Pink. And I can't tell you how many people have commented on that since it's been on my car. And it's got the pink ribbons around. And for me, that's one of many ways that you create awareness. And I think two critical messages that you can talk about when someone, chuckles about the plate and said, oh, I love that, is it's a reminder that annual mammograms save lives. That's like huge in my mind. And as you can see why, because I've experienced it twice in my own family. Another area that's, I think, important to emphasize, and this is what my surgeon said to me yesterday, because I said, well, what do you think is really important? What are the messages that should go out there? So obviously, number one, annual mammogram. Hers was, which was not what I expected, because usually I hear eat healthy, watch your alcohol consumption. But Dr. Bonifaz said, no, my number two, and it's huge, is exercise. And she said exercise is good for your mind, it's good for your body. But she said this, that it's been proven to help prevent breast cancer. So she said 180 minutes a week is what you should try to achieve, or something near that. But she said, just keep moving. That's what her message was.
Right. And that is so true. I people ask me all the time, what causes it? What's different now? But if you get right down to it, it is the stress we live under, in my mind. My opinion only, no scientific proof behind this, but we don't have a way to relieve that except by exercise.
Correct.
And it does, like you said, so many other good things for us. And it doesn't have to be go to the gym and work out for an hour. No. It can be walking.
And she said
a mile
walking.
To 2 miles every day, 5 days a week, 3 days a week.
Yes.
Just, like you said, as long as you're moving.
And you're right. She said walking is the best thing for you. And she's not talking about weights and this and that, everything else, just walking.
Just walking,
And everyone can do that.
Everyone, It's just like, let's don't make it more complicated. We don't need the additional stress. Right. That's the thing that I just really object to when I hear women preaching or the preaching that goes on to us, you should, and
Right.
and I think let's make it as easy as we can for them, because you don't know
Right.
what that woman is
Right.
dealing with the rest of that day,
Exactly.
and that can make such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Great advice. I'm gonna have to send her a note. Tell her
Good,
thank you.
too, yes.
Yeah, that
She
would
was
be
all
great.
excited, of course,
Oh,
and I
she's
forgot to tell Dr. Osborne because, he's always interested in what's going on in the breast cancer world on this side of it.
yeah,
So
right. Oh, his studies were incredible. His studies
yes,
showed that
yes,
we could almost have a mammography center on every corner and still not have enough access for all the people that need it.
that's true.
And I don't think, if you live in Houston, you think, oh, it's a big city. But I'm not sure very many people understand the percentage of uninsured that we have right here. And they're working 3 and 4 jobs. I mean, these aren't people that just don't want to work. These are people trying to make a living, get by, take care of their family, but you can't afford health care.
Yeah.
And so health care has just become unattainable, even for many small businesses. So trust someday we're going to see a change in that. I
I
hope.
hope. But that's why the rose is so critical,
No, true.
because you
True,
feel
Nancy.
that need.
Yeah.
But I don't know the numbers, but I can't even imagine in a city of this size. Probably a
It's
lot.
more like 30% of this city is without health coverage. Of that, the majority are women and children. Now, remember, the state has a program for children as long as you continue to sign up for it every 6 months, which drives many of our uninsured up a wall because they change things all the time. But the woman just doesn't. There's really no Medicaid in Texas for women. And so you either have to be birthing, have a child, be disabled, or make less than $4,000 a year. Wow. That's the only.
Shocking.
I know.
I know. It is.
So the things that you do and helping us to share this has so many far-reaching impacts. I can see why you're one of the impact women, because you're saying to every woman, go get that mammogram. And young
That's
and
a priority.
old. Yes.
No matter what your, no matter what your age, when they allow it. It's
Even if
number
they
one.
don't. Yeah.
Right. It is number one. It is definitely annual mammogram saves lives.
That's right.
There's no doubt about it.
And that's when we want to catch it. And the other thing is that there are resources here in this city. Of course, we cover 43 counties with those mobile units. I know. Wow. There are resources, but we need women like you. We need help from the community to continue to do that. Now, go back to your time. 8 weeks, I wasn't quite ready for that. Because I usually talk a lot about, tell us about your treatment, tell us what happened with that. But it still applies. So tell us, what was the kindest thing? Now, your card, of course, is so precious. But what was the kindest thing anyone did during that time? Just like you said, you were having your own problems there.
Right.
Even accepting it.
And I was in denial. I mean, there was no doubt about it. But after the biopsy, the week after the biopsy, 2 of my friends texted me, and one had been diagnosed the month before me, and she was also at she had chosen Baylor. Dr. Osborne was her oncologist, but she had a different surgeon. So the 2 of them texted me, and the other is one of my best friends, and said, why don't we meet for coffee? And we can talk about things that, will cheer you up or whatever. And so I get the text, so I didn't get the call so I could think on this. And I was like, no, I am not ready to talk about this. And I don't want to talk about it. It's too depressing. And it means that it's true, too.
Yeah, right.
So I really didn't want to. So I sat on it for a day, and I thought, no, okay. One's my best friend, and the other is trying to be supportive and loving. So I texted back, and I said, sure, okay, we will. So we meet for coffee, and the one who had just been diagnosed brought a book that helped her kind of process all this. And all these goodies, both of them, of like pink things, and like things that, and spiritual things as well. To keep all this in mind and keep positive. And we love you, we'll support you, and you're not alone. So you're going to do just fine. Well, that was like, and I will tell you, I almost have tears in my eyes thinking about it, because I did. Oh, I was crying because they were so sweet. And I had accepted it by then, that I had breast cancer. So that was very meaningful for me, and something I didn't think I needed, but I really did. It was the best thing and the best timing for me, to accept it, and also know I'm not alone. And there are a lot of people out there that have had breast cancer. And my friend who had been diagnosed before, hers was much more, had progressed much more, much further along. And I think she had found hers on the mammogram, but I think she had missed a year. So, which goes back to how critical the annual mammogram is. It is just critical. So that was probably, other than my grandsons, how they reached out, and they kind of pushed to make sure it happened, because they probably realized I wasn't quite ready, but I was, and I didn't know it.
And that's so important, because so many times I hear folks say, "Well, what can we do?" Your friends did something.
Yeah,
they
did. They
were
proactive.
Had you there, and they had things to give you, and a lot of folks just don't even think about that, or they think, "Oh, that's just kind of corny," but it's not. Right. We miss the cards. I love this electronic age, but sometimes you just need a card in your hand that someone sent you and said, your grandson, we love you, get well, we care about you. These things, we can't forget how much our human nature needs that contact.
Right.
And probably, even though we're strong and we mentally know all the things about it, we all need a hug.
Right.
And that's what that was, a huge hug.
And it was.
For you, yeah.
And they did. It was all hugs and group hug when we all left, and, tears of joy and support. It was just, I never would have dreamed that would mean so much to me. And like I said, because I really didn't think I was ready for that.
Yeah.
But after that, after having coffee with them and talking about all the things that we can do to help prevent other things, with healthy eating and so forth, I was ready the next week to tell everyone. And then make it my mission that this is my responsibility. I know various things that can help others as far as awareness, resources. And so that's very important to me now. And it was immediately, and that's my nature as well, but this one is personal, obviously different than some of the other organizations that I've supported. And I've supported because I just believe in that, whatever their mission is.
Their mission,
right. But this one is personal. So
yeah, when it's personal, it's different. The
bit
difference
different.
in major and minor surgery, if it's being done on you.
Yes.
First thing I heard one of our oncologists tell his residents, I thought, that's brilliant. There is no minor surgery when it's being done on you.
It's true.
That's true.
Boy.
Nancy, close this up with telling us how important your faith was during this time.
My faith is everything. And this was what I would consider, a crisis. Not. It could be a life-changing crisis, but it wasn't. It was a crisis in my life. And I told you the first two calls I made. My husband when I was coming from my biopsy, and my daughter. And my first meeting with anyone was the next day with my friend, retired pastor, Jim Jackson, actually. He's someone in Houston that was the preacher for Chapelwood Methodist, and I'm not Methodist, but I love and adore. I did meet him at that church through other means. But Jim really walked me through. In other words, this is just a hiccup in the road, a bump in the road, and you're strong. You can handle this. God is in your corner, and So that was I think within 12 hours of actually diagnosis, I had reached out to him, and we had communicated and then met. But my faith is number one. That is, it's faith, family, and community. I mean, that's probably in that order. So no matter what, he's there for us, and he'll get us through everything.
In your corner.
He is.
I love that. Yeah. Great advice. Great reassurance.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today. My gosh, the messages and your stories are so great. Thank you for sharing.
Dorothy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential.